Yeah, at this point, the question I have, Jerry, is, we kind of getting our arms around kind of understanding, the principles of soil health and how we can improve our organic matter, improve our water holding capacity. It's cover crops, it's tillage. How do we get these practices more widely adapted? I mean, that's a $64,000 question, but you've been in this a long time, and I think you've probably got some really good observations.
Yeah, I've been doing a deep dive on this, and that's a really pertinent question from the standpoint that I've been looking across the Midwest is what are the demographics of our agricultural systems? I mean, where are we at relative to reduced tillage on corn, reduced tillage on beans, the use of cover crops, and all of this? I mean, cover crops, we're 2 to 5%, depending on what county you're in. Reduced tillage, we're a little better on in all of this. I think that what we're going to have is an understanding that, and everybody's holding out hope that the carbon markets are going to influence this because people will get paid to sequester carbon. But it really comes down to the value of that. When we go back and look at Wayne's data, we've looked at other data across the Midwest, is that we're seeing maybe that value of what it's meaning for field operations probably is much more in that $100 per acre range in terms of improved profitability, improved yield stability. I was looking at another data set that has been a long-term cover crop and no-till. And just for the last 25 years, the county average yield has gone up it went up about 2 bushels per year, then close to the state average. But these fields with the no-till and the cover crop were almost at, just a little over 4 bushels per year. So that's a major difference in terms of taking advantage of that genetic potential because of our soils out there. And maybe if we get more and more of these messages in terms of how do we begin to improve the profitability, improve your yield stability, improving your return on the investments you make in a bag of seed, maybe those become their trigger points in all of this. So I think there are a lot of different things. I don't have a magic answer. I've been looking through all of the data across the Midwest, looking at trends for the last 20 years, and we're just kind of in a holding pattern. And I honestly don't know what it's going to take to trigger us to go to the next aspect of improving our cover, reducing our tillage and all this. Maybe $5 diesel will push that a little bit, Paul. So,
okay. Tim has a comment in the box, and unless we start to see some improvements in our rain patterns across the state this year, can we expect some visible differences in crop health between those operations that utilize cover crops, no-till, versus those that don't?
Yes, we can. I've actually in 2012, back in the last drought we had, that everybody's remembers, is that we had fields in which we had improved soil health. We had lots of water storage. We had yields coming out of those fields that were in that 250 to 270 range even then. Fields that had poor organic matter, no cover, lots of tillage on them were in that 100 bushel range. And if you remember back in 2012, we had $7 corn again. So, I mean, there's a major difference. And I think that when we have these weather events, these dry springs and drought, and the projection is still that 2021 is going to be dry, so we can expect these fields with soil health to have an enhanced response. But let me make a caveat, is that we have to have the water in the spring to be able to recharge that profile. And, in a lot of cases, we haven't recharged that profile very much. So we still need that fully recharged profile going into that summer to be able to tide it over. And if that hasn't occurred, we'll probably see reductions in yield across both of them.
Okay, Jody had a question, so I think she can unmute herself and ask it.
Paul, she sent it to me directly.
Hi.
So go ahead, Jody.
Thank you. Hi, Jerry. So glad you're on today. My question was, how can policies change the agriculture sector to assist in this transition to soil health management practices? And then my comment I put is, I think persistence on the part of farm advisors, bankers, state and federal agencies is crucial.
Oh, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think that part of this is that we have to have policy that really starts rewarding this. If our policy is really about improving carbon within our soils, producers will start asking questions, how do I do that? I think the other piece of this, and it's a point that I made on Wayne's data, is the crop insurance piece, making it less risky. If we could get the crop insurance companies to start saying, we can give you reduced premium because you're reducing the risk on your field. Financial people to come in and say, you're a much better monetary risk because you're buffered against a lot of these different things. I think those would have an impact, but I think it's going to take a concerted effort. Always worry about top-down government approaches. I think that they can facilitate part of our policy, but I think a lot of this comes back to how do we get producers to realize that it's in their best interest?
Yes.
In terms of improving profitability. A friend of mine, we were talking this morning, is that on the farming thing, is he says, you can't have financial returns without biological investments. And I think that was, from the farming standpoint, is that we're going to have to invest in our biology, both above ground and below ground, to make this happen. I'm fascinated by the speed in which we see some of these changes occurring within our soils. And I think that if we can get producers to realize that this is not a 10-year thing, that they can actually see these changes within the first growing season in terms of how they're managing water, how they're getting their infiltration rates in there, all these different things, then it begins to have a positive impact.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. Verlin has a comment and a question. First, very good presentation. Have you considered some larger impacts, including recharge of deeper groundwater and the improved restored water cycle that also can have a significant impact on climate? Do you think the more of the hand-holding type of approach with those successful ag producers closely help those ag producers want to learn how to do it? I think I got that right.
Yeah, you got that right. I see it in the chat box here, Paul. And I've been telling people that the aspect on climate that we're in right now is our biggest challenge in agriculture over the next 10 to 20 years, in my personal opinion, is going to be how do we manage water? And if you look at putting this in, recharging our deep groundwater, even recharging our shallow groundwater at times, and having an impact on our soils. But at the same time, when we begin to adopt all these practices, we begin to take the flashiness out, because we're moving it through the soil, we're not moving it over the top. And so I think that water management, understanding the hydrologic cycle, is going to be critical. The second piece of this, and I'll give you an example. I've got a small group of producers that I'm working with in Eastern Kansas that is kind of a knowledge co-op, and some of them are been in cover crops for a while. This whole group has come together to learn how to share with one another. And they share their information. We actually hold field days, and we've been out running infiltration tests and and kicking clods and things like this, and talking about cover crop performance, what it means in terms of their systems. I believe that this may be the piece that we want to look at very closely and saying, how do we build these communities of people that know each other, learn from each other, help each other understand that, but also are willing to share their ideas and their failures, because not everything works. And so having a dialogue about that, Vernon, I think that may become a model of how do we begin to I don't think it is hand holding as knowledge sharing as much. And I think if we can get it into the knowledge sharing mode, I think we'll have a great time. And I think we'll really begin to change agriculture for the positive.
I think that is so true. I'm serious, everyone. That is so true. And we could do that at a watershed level, and getting farmers together and supporting each other. And we can never forget about the social aspect of making this an applied thing. Social aspect is so important. Thanks for bringing that up, everybody.
Carolyn has a comment.
You want to know the name of my knowledge sharing group in Kansas? We call it the Prairie Soil Pioneers. And
Is that an open access group?
Open access group. Yeah, I'm trying to get their website set up for them, but I'm too old to figure out how to do websites. I have to get a 16-year-old kid to help me. I want to go back Jody's comment in terms of this, and for those of you who have more gray hair like I do, remember the maximum yield clubs that once were existed across the Midwest? I think that we could think about a soil health club, in terms of profit efficiency, some sort of thing that goes with this, that I think could really start a movement in terms of being able to not only promote and share information about soil health and improve farming.